The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering first-timer lesson packages for beginner skiers and snowboarders. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering vinyl, composite, and James Hardie siding. windowworldofwesternma.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, sweet things for your sweetheart, no matter the holiday or the season, with Dan Willy Wonka McKenney at Fire Type Chocolate in Northampton.
It's his official nickname now. And we'll get online with word nerd Emily Brewster to see the ways that filters and policing of social sites has given way to new ways of using language as we examine algospeak.
But first, it's chilly outside with more weather on the way.
So let's head to Holly to taste a beverage that the cold makes possible and perhaps even better.
The real question will be, will Khalees's car make it to Holly? Because she notoriously, in her Kia Soul, has trouble on wintry roads. And it has been a wintry week, and the roads to Holly are wintry. But it's time for a Local Hero Spotlight with Claire Morneau from CISA, the local hero, folks. And we're here at Headwater Cider with the head of Headwater Cider, Peter Mitchell, and Dr. Liz Garofalo from UMass Extension, where they are researching what it takes to make sure our apples can continue to thrive in an ever-changing environment.
While I do love the name Dr. Garofalo, I haven't gotten my PhD yet.
Oh.
So hold on to that honorific. It's coming.
I can't wait to call you Dr. Liz.
I cannot wait for you to call me Dr. Liz.
What's your relationship to Headwater?
Peter is one of our staunchest supporters of the fruit team at Extension, but also I come up here often to help Peter with his disease problems with his apples or sometimes his insect issues to help him produce fruit that is fit for the bottle.
So you're a doctor helping with disease.
Right.
You're that kind of doctor. Peter, tell us about Headwater and what got you started in making cider here in Holly.
Cider days got me started. Back in the 90s, started coming here, tasted West County's Dry Baldwin, was absolutely phenomenal. Said, this is great, gotta make some. Well, you're gonna need some apples to do that. So 20 years ago, this year, bought this orchard. It was Apex's satellite orchard. 2 years after that, built this mill and started making cider. And the rest, as they say, is history. We do what's kind of getting more and more rare these days is estate cider, which basically means you grow the fruit and you produce the cider right there at the orchard.
Yeah, which is rare even here. Like some of West County, their apples are one place and their cidery is another place and their tasting room is another place.
And they have been doing wonderful things for local growers as well. Mm-hmm. What they did starting off was buy trees of the varieties they want, particularly Redfield, and say Apex Orchard, say Pine Hill. If you grow the apples on these trees for us, we promise to buy all that fruit from you. And that's great because it's a real interlocking between the cider maker and the grower.
You're having to worry about both, the growing and the making of the cider.
Yeah, that's true. It's true that the orchard is where good cider is made. Mm-hmm. You can't make a decent cider, silk purse out of a sow's ear, which happens to be one of our ciders this year.
Sow's ear or silk purse?
Silk purse.
You just won an award for a type of cider that not a lot of cideries locally are doing, right?
Yes, ice cider over at Glint Cap took a gold medal for that this spring. It's a very, very sweet dessert cider. What it is you do something called cryoconcentration. Basically a freeze-thaw cycle, and of course sugar water, sweet water, or salt water has a lower freeze temperature. So after a few days, a week or two actually, in and out of the mill, you will get 200 gallons of pure white water ice sitting on something the consistency of maple syrup. Mm-hmm. There's that much sugar in it. And the yeast will only eat so much sugar. It's like, I'll make 12% alcohol for you. Well, there's far more sugar in that than 12%, but it's going to stop there. So it's a really sweet, delicate drink.
As somebody who's a wine snob, I like to say I don't like sweet wine, but if you have ice wine, it's unbelievable. It's so good.
I'm curious just about the annual cycle here, growing the apples, pressing the cider. What's coming next?
Oh, it works out well. Right now, we're starting to be bottling. The cider in these tanks is ready to go, and we will get it carbonated because people love their bubbles. We're going to let it rest in the bottle for at least a month after bottling and then start doing it. We've got 4 labels right now on the market, and CISA has been a wonderful help in getting the word out about that.
So the cider that is here in these tanks at Headwater Cider is apples that were from this past season?
Correct. These were all harvested this past fall. We pressed them right here, and they're in these tanks now. They've just completed fermentation. Unlike most wines, which are higher in acidity and sometimes need years to age, this stuff is going to be ready to go this spring.
Almost Dr. Liz, tell us about some of the pressures that you have encountered here and elsewhere through UMass Extension that apple farmers are facing right now.
So apple growing is a year-round process. Growers have to manage their trees this time of year. They'll be pruning. Then, of course, when spring comes, they start with their pest management and just making sure that their trees are healthy and happy so that they can get the apples that, we rely on here. One of the biggest challenges I think that growers are facing is labor shortages. They struggle to bring in folks who are willing to do the work of the farm. And it's not like 30, 40, 50 years ago when you could hire a gaggle of high school kids and they'd come in and they'd help you prune or they'd help you pick. So they struggle really greatly with labor. The other thing, of course, is climate change, and that has definitely become far more obvious since I started about 10 years ago. In the last 5 to 6 years even, it has become really clear that our growers are struggling with these erratic weather patterns. So, we've had a couple of years where we've lost our peaches because of spring freezes. Technically, actually not the spring freeze, but the warming that we experience in the winter. And then when that happens, the trees start to wake up, and then we get a cold snap, and the flower buds get damaged. So we've had that happen more frequently, both with peaches and with apples over the last several years. Then, of course, we have our erratic rain events. We have long stretches of drought and then sudden deluges. Now, apples need about 26 inches of rain a year, right? But not all at once. They need that slowly over time to be healthy. And so those are like the two biggest challenges I think that our growers are really facing right now.
We're at Headwater Cider with almost Dr. Liz Garofolo and Peter Mitchell, the head of Headwater Cider, and Claire Morneau from Seesaw, the local hero folks.
I'm curious just about how some of the climate change impacts have shown up for you. Have you started to see changes here?
Yes, I have. And Liz hit it right on the head. I wouldn't call it climate change, I'd call it climate chaos, because nothing is really predictable very much anymore. And what apple trees love is a slow climb out of winter. But we've been getting these hot flashes, these hot spells, and the trees will wake up, the buds will form, and then boom, it's down to 26 degrees. And when you're at full bud swell or even at pink, and that happens, you're going to start losing apples because it'll just freeze out the buds. Also, in terms of degree day, which is how you estimate when the insects are going to show up, it's all over the board. You say, oh, it's going to be this date and this insect will show up, I'll be ready for it. But it brings into more the importance of IPM.
Integrated pest management?
That's the one. And that's constant monitoring. The best thing that orchardists can do is walk their own property and scout and see what's going on. That way they know what to do. Instead of using any sort of spray on just a calendar schedule, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
As Peter mentioned, it's really difficult to prepare for something when you don't know what's coming on any given season. Some folks are able to invest in equipment, for example, frost mitigation equipment. I know recently Clarkdale in Deerfield got a very large fan, and what that will do when we have a freeze event coming on, that will help keep the cold air moving so it doesn't settle around those flower buds. So that's one way. A lot of people are starting to invest in irrigation, which is more important on those high-density trees, the ones that are planted more closely together. Although folks like Peter, who have these older stands, the trees are larger, they've got a more robust root system. So thinking about the type of root system that our trees have is one of the ways that our growers are preparing for this water issue as well.
You made it!
Yay!
Did you already make the joke that they somehow remembered to plow Forget Road mostly?
I did not.
I was very impressed.
Yeah. Do you pronounce it Forget Road or is it Forget?
It is Forget.
Do we know the story as to why it's called Forget Road?
If you notice at the other end of the Buckland end of the road, it's Forget with an extra T and an E. There was a small forge here during the American Revolution, and there's a lot of still French Canadians down here, a lot of French Canadian blood here. I just tell people we ran out of paint and forgot the other T and the E at this end.
So we've talked a little bit about his history and a little bit about his ice cider.
Want to pop it?
Yeah, I would love to try this award-winning ice cider.
I mean, ice cider is such an interesting process anyway.
All right, so what apples are you using for your ice cider there, Peter Mitchell?
Oh, the ice cider this year, and it's working out really well, is your traditional eating apples and culinary apples, Cortland, Mac, and Empire. I've found that if you concentrate the tannins in an ice cider, that doesn't really work as well. You want something that's a little more smooth, and that means our classic New England apples work really well in ice cider.
Almost Dr. Liz, what got you interested in apples and UMass Extension and turning this into a career?
Like Peter, cider days here in Franklin County was what got me first interested in cider. And working with Extension, I had a very long circuitous road that took me to UMass, where I very quickly realized that working with farmers was really the thing that I wanted to be doing to do something worthwhile with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
not like a waste like your husband's life who works in radio.
well, it actually works out really well because he's got the megaphone and I've got the message.
Cider Days is the best time of the year. It's still the best time of the year.
Not only concentrating the sugars to get the alcohol, but we're also concentrating the acidity, which tends to balance out the sweetness.
Mm-hmm. It smells wonderful. It smells apple-y.
It smells honey-y.
And it's a 2-year fermentation process.
The acid in this really balances it out so it's not cloying.
And that's the secret.
Yep.
Unlike wine, we've got malic acid in here, which is a much sharper, more granity acid, which will cut through that sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through your line of products? Do you have things you make every year, or is it sort of like wherever the apples lead you?
Would that I could use the same label over and over and over again. But everything's different every year. There's no harvest is exactly like last year's harvest. It's a wet year. A lot of juice, not a lot of sugar. It's a dry year. A lot of sugar, not a lot of juice. And also, you're not going to get the same blend of apples growing every single year. Some are biennial. Some take a year off, and then you'll get abundance next year. So each year, I need a different label. And in fact, I've got a friend, Liz Billings of Billingsbrook Farm, just up the road. She has a copy of Adobe Illustrator and does all my label art for me. So we order new labels every time. It tastes different.
Have those changes in climate changed what apples you're seeking to get from your orchard, or changed what you're grafting and growing?
Good question. I am looking further south for any varieties going down there. It used to be I worried about things frosting out. It just like it's going to bloom too early. We're in the wrong zone for this. A lot of the southern apples. I don't worry about that as much.
What other types of apples are you growing?
Oh, we got 38 varieties. Mm-hmm. When I bought the orchard, we started off at the basic 3, Cortland, Mac, and Empire. It's still heavy Macintosh orchard. The other varieties I really like right now, Nehu, which is a French apple. I'm looking for bittersweet apples to give me that tannin. I've got enough acidity with the Macintosh and the Empire. The tannins tend to smooth things out because tannic acid is a smoother acid than malic. A tannin bomb. You didn't... Yes, that's a joke there, too. Tannenbaum. You only need a few of them to jack up your tannin content. However, most of your bittersweet apples, which mostly come from Europe, are fire blight susceptible. There are a few things you do for fire blight. Most of them involve a chainsaw. But St. Edmund's russet is a good one. I'm partial to any of the russets because you can get tannins off the skins that way. Also, russet skins are thicker, so it's kind of sort of like an armor coating for it against apple scab, which I know someone did a really great master's thesis research on.
On apple scabs?
On apple scab.
Gross.
In Europe, they call it black spot, first of all, and not scab, which sounds like a social problem.
Or, you're busting the union.
But so the issue with apple scab is that, as most disease is driven by moisture, specifically precipitation. And so here in the Northeast, we get an awful lot of rain during the beginning of the growing season, so we have an awful lot of disease to combat, to include fire blight, as Peter already mentioned, and apple scab. So apple scab is a fungal disease that affects both the foliage and the fruit of the apple tree. And what happens is in the spring, the spore that I was just talking about shoot up from the leaves that were infected last year. Those spores get on the apples and they cause, the scabby spots on the apples, right? Which, of course, if you're selling to direct consumer, that consumer is going to see that scabby spot and be like, no, it's got scab, yuck.
But is it bad for you? Like, could you eat it?
Yes, you can eat it. It's bumpy, and if it's bad enough on the apple, it'll crack, and you'll have like brown, dry flesh underneath. Mm-hmm. But you could eat a scabby apple. Also, typically, you can just peel the skin right off, and then
it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
How bad are Cortlands when you ferment them that nobody seems to do it?
Oh, the reason Cortlands are a pain in the butt is because there's so much fiber in them. If you're making apple pie, you put the Cortlands in it and they're going to hold their shape.
Yep. It's why they're the best cooking apple.
Yeah.
They're across the board.
But you put Macintosh, making a Macintosh apple pie, you open the oven, it's like, oh, Mom's home. She cooked me pie. But it's going to be soup and crust. So you need a blend of apples to make a decent pie. But the problem is once you start pressing Cortlands, that fiber is going to clog up your press and you're not going to get as much juice and it starts squirting out of the press and it's a real pain. That's why people don't like Cortlands. But they are a grower's tree. I am guaranteed to get a good crop of Cortlands every year. They're very forgiving to work with.
I'm curious, we talked about climate change impacts on the orchard. I'm curious just what you've seen change in the cider business over the last 18 years.
Oh, it's schizophrenic. Okay, you got your wine cider, which are in the 750s.
750 milliliter bottles?
Yes, wine-sized bottle. You've also got the flip side. Oh, I really don't want to slap people around too hard. The canned cider, the six-pack cider, the apple soda pop with back-added alcohol. Sticky sweet, and that's the first cider that most people try. It's hard to get people to make that jump to what that is, that mass production, volume, to what a lot of us out in Western Mass are doing. Small batch, paying attention to fruit, and doing it like a wine. This is not a volume game, what I'm doing. I do not produce millions of gallons a year, and I am not nationally distributed. I'm self-distributing in Western Mass, mostly Franklin, Hampshire, and Northern Berkshire County. A lot of those big kids are finding it hard right now in that they've hyper-expanded, and that market is falling away for them as people's palates are starting to mature. And I think that where I and a lot of my friends who also make cider are going with the 750s, pushing that wine envelope is the way it's going to go. Keep it regional, keep it diverse.
So ice cider is something you just won an award. Are there other products that you have this year that you're really excited about?
Oh, yes. Actually, the Silk Purse, which we were talking about earlier. This one I'm really proud of, came out this year. This one I think has the most rounded mouthfeel to it. We've also got one called Edge, which has a good strong acid backbone, which will cut through any sort of heavy foods you might want to serve it with. And Rosa, which is our rosé cider. Judith Maloney of West County cider
The
fame.
godmother of all cider in this world.
A few years back, she gifted me 10 Redfield apple trees, and they came in. They're biennial, unfortunately. They came in quite well 2 years ago, and let's make a rosé cider because it's a red-fleshed and adds a red hint to the cider as well.
What do you like about the local cider community here in Western Mass?
Oh, that you would think that, oh my God, you're standing toe-to-toe with you're no competitors. No, they're not. We're all working together because we realize it's a very small, tight-knit community, and we do all help each other out. If I've got a piece of busted equipment, I can pick up the phone and call and borrow someone's they're not using it, and vice versa. It really is good. And especially when it comes to cider days, right now everybody's pitching in trying to make that thing happen. And it's going back, cider is going back to its roots where it's stopping at every orchard, stopping at every cidery, and doing it that way.
Every time we go and talk about cider, I talk about this one cider that I have one bottle left of. And I weep a little on the inside, and Monty's like, you should drink it. And I'm like, but then I'll never have it again. I like the possibility.
I was going to say, yeah, you might not have it now.
Got a shelf.
I know.
Yeah, drink it before it becomes vinegar.
I know.
Thanks again to Peter Mitchell from Headwater Cider and Holly, almost Dr. Liz Garofolo from UMass Extension, and Claire Morneau from CISA.
Coming up, breaking binary wide open as we linguistically exploit loopholes online with our resident wordster Emily Brewster and algospeak.
But first, we get our cocoa on with the white, dark, and milk of it all at Fire-Type Chocolate in Northampton.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEVM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy. Admissions now open for graduate programs in 2025. Learn how to become a changemaker at umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Khalees, do you care about Valentine's Day at all?
No.
Me either. But you know what I like?
Chocolate.
And a lot of people like chocolate
I like
for Valentine's
chocolate
Days.
all year round.
Me too.
I need a few more people to care about chocolate all year round, and then I can go on 3 more vacations every year, and it'll be wonderful.
We are in Thorne's Marketplace, and the doors of this place has just opened. And it being Valentine's week, the counter at Fire-Type Chocolate has already been bombarded.
I'm Dan. I'm the owner at Fire-Type Chocolate.
You are our resident Willy Wonka.
Yeah, sure. If he was a little, at the end of the movie where he's like in the office and just like kind of angry.
Yeah.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
A little bit more like that. For real, though. Absolutely. Cam has seen it.
So wait, so making chocolate all the time isn't just like a world of pure imagination?
Hold your breath. Make a wish.
Oh, yeah, it's total huge candy mushrooms down there, and it's a chocolate river. It's amazing.
You can eat everything, even these pins that Cam made.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, yuck.
Way too many minerals for what anybody wants.
You have a counter here in Thorns when you walk in from Main Street. It's right on the first floor there. But your chocolate factory is Thorns?
Yeah, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, they moved. You started in a garage in Florence.
Right.
They were renting from like O'Brien at Sierra Grill in Building 8. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, they built out a commercial kitchen space in the basement of the building. So now I go up and downstairs all day and I get all my steps in. And
That's
it's
good.
awesome.
Then you can justify eating more of the chocolate.
Yeah, and people are always surprised that like we make it here in the building because this is such a small little counter.
Yeah.
But we do.
I mean, I was surprised because I knew some of the earlier, when this was Heavenly Chocolate, before it was Fire Type, and they were still making all the chocolate in Florence. I knew people who were making the chocolate then.
Wait, who do you know? Let's dish.
So I knew Jill. I feel like I knew...
Jill, who did the cheese buying at Cornucopia?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jill. Loves Jill.
And I know Bud Stockwell, who was from Heavenly Chocolate and was the former owner of Cornucopia. Did you purchase Heavenly and turn it into Fire Type?
I did. So I purchased Heavenly and I turned it into Fire Type, but it's a weird thing because like Bud hired me in 2013 and I interviewed to be a manager here at Heavenly when it was Heavenly and I bombed that interview. I walked out of that thing like going like, man, I didn't get that job.
You get nothing. You lose.
But then, at the end, you gave the everlasting gobstopper back. Guess what? I'm giving you my chocolate back.
Charlie, my boy. You won.
We don't have gobstoppers here. It's chocolate.
Oh, yeah, right.
He hired me to be a cashier at the grocery store, and then I just kind of worked my way up into the chocolate world, and I've been here ever since.
Tell me about the name, Fire Type.
When I purchased in 2021, I never was a Heavenly person. Like, I've never been that kind of, like, demure, like, we're so fancy and kind of, look at all the gold leafing and everything.
Or like a weird, like, spiritual hippie like Bud Stockwell.
I didn't know him back then. Here, let me hang up the phone on this person.
Chocolate service with it. I said good day!
Good day, sir.
I can see from the caller ID, it's just the city of Northampton, not a big deal.
Yeah, who cares about that?
Who cares about
They're
parking
like, hey,
alerts?
it's gonna snow again. Move your car.
Exactly. When we were purchasing and changing everything over, I wanted to change it to something that was a little more loud, a little more bold, a little more playful, because I do believe that we can be fancy, but also fun at the same time. So that's where we changed the name for. That's why we changed it.
What does Fire Type mean?
Yeah, so it's partly being loud, being bold, being abrasive. It's also my business partner in this. I met 20 years ago playing Pokemon. And so there's inspiration there. There's some inspiration there from those things that we loved and that we met, and that, 20 years later, I wouldn't know that I would have been in this relationship so long. You know what I mean?
Well, can we go see where the magic happens?
Absolutely. If you want to view paradise.
Do we have to go through the scary tunnel with you?
There's no earthly way of knowing.
Honestly, yeah, there's a scary tunnel.
Okay.
You're going to see a part of Thorns that nobody gets to see.
I love
At least
this.
there's no like scary elevator anymore.
You want to hop in the freight elevator just for fun?
Not
A great class freight elevator?
I don't need that trauma to come back to me.
We're walking by the new Hometown Arcade, which we should do a follow-up segment with those folks and go play video games.
The basement floor here is great. I mean, we got Cornucopia, which we get all of our organic like produce and stuff. They're able to source it for us. It used to be the same business, Heavenly and Cornucopia, and kind of like breaking up with a long-term partner, you still find their stuff, and like we're still their emergency contact, and vice versa. And then in here in the Captain Candy space, Telus is opening a stray kitchen in there to do New York-style pizzas and deli.
Yeah, and their pizzas in Tellus are already really good, so I can't wait to see what else they bring to it. And we are in the bowels of Thorns Marketplace in Northampton with Dan McKinney, who owns Fire Type Chocolate, and about to go experience the chocolate factory.
So now we're in the basement. You ready to be mesmerized?
Yes.
I know. You ready to see the chocolate river?
Yes.
Drops. Oh, now it's stainless steel.
That's great. That's what we want.
Oh, but it immediately smell the chocolate. And we see your blue Q apron that says, I'll feed all you f***ers.
That's
and
my favorite one.
see our previous segment where we went on the tour of the Blue Q factory, which was also very Willy Wonka-esque.
Yes.
More Oompa Loompas over there?
Yeah, indeed.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's, stuff that looks like commercial kitchen stuff and all sorts of racks and ingredients and mixing machines,
Speed
etc.
racks for the future.
And then there are these speed racks. What do we got? What's on these speed racks right now?
Is that what it's called, a speed rack?
Yeah, these are speed racks because like you'll set up stuff to proof on them and then you can grab it really quickly. Like you'll just like put stuff there to cool and then you'll grab it really quickly, so they're called speed racks.
One of the great things about bombing an interview with Bud Stockwell and then owning the business eventually is you're just figuring it out as you go. So like, yeah, what's that called? You tell me.
So then how did you learn how to make, did he teach you how to make everything?
No, I mean, I stayed for a couple years and then I ended up bouncing around a bit. I went to New York City. I worked for a chocolatier in New York. I did like their wholesale stuff. I ended up on a goat farm in Vermont. I was making all the caramel at the goat farm with milk. It was gorgeous views.
Is it the same goat milk caramel that you sell here?
Yeah, Big Picture Farm.
Oh, that caramel's so good!
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can take some credit for that still. And then I ended up back here right before the pandemic started, just helping out for holidays, seasonal stuff. And then the pandemic happened. And then I bought it.
How much time are you usually down here making the chocolate? Are you doing it all by yourself? Do you have Oompa Loompas and minions that are doing this work for you?
I would say closer to minions. That sounds weirdly better.
You didn't have to abduct Oompa Loompas from their land and make them work in your factory.
No, I have the little yellow guys that scream about bananas.
Yeah, right.
Banana.
No, everybody on staff pretty much helps out in the kitchen at this point because staying in the booth all day long, it's a bit mind-numbing. So we get to train everybody and everybody gets to learn how to make all of these confections over time, and then it's great because then I can step away and do payroll and taxes and insurance.
Yeah. Are they like, okay, we're running out of this salted caramel dark chocolate up here. Somebody's got to go downstairs and make some more? How does it usually work?
Usually that. Pretty much every day is like, hey, we're out of this. And I'm like, I'm trying my best.
How long does it take to make it? Like, if you see you're running out there, how long will it take from you starting to mix the chocolate to getting it up there back on the shelf?
It's a multi-day process because these things need to cure overnight. They need time to set, to firm up, especially for some of these pieces, like these s'mores bonbons we see on the rack here on the what was it?
Oh, speed rack.
Speed rack. It's a multi-layered piece, so it has like one layer that needs to cure, and then the next day we'll do the next layer, and then so on and so forth. And you can't do them all together at the same time because the chocolate will melt at high heat.
What are these little worms or animal scat chocolates under here?
Those are the animal scats. I go out into the
secret ingredient.
Cornucopia is a great store that has wonderful products. No, these are dipped orange peels.
Tell me about one of the chocolates that you are having the most success with. Like when I bought the chocolates, I better not say this, but this is a Valentine's present.
And I hate to break it to you, she probably doesn't listen.
That's true.
She probably,
I know she doesn't. Anyway, I had you walk me through the types of chocolates that I know that she would like, mostly dark, all that kind of thing. Yeah. What's really popular, and what did you said you won an award for one of them?
We have a mix of things that both Bud invented like back in 2013 and started, and then a bunch of things that I created, and then even the staff have come up with. So there's a wonderful mix going on. The lavender sea salt caramel, that was a Bud and Corinne's thing. People still love that one. The tahini one, that's one that we started doing more recently. It's a very, very popular piece. Once people try it, they're like, let me get 3 of those.
Yeah.
We're doing a Guilty Pleasures collection for Valentine's, which is more inspired by like what my partner loves. She's a s'mores, she's a twist ice cream with rainbow sprinkles kind of person. So they're not like that adventurous, but they're really, really satisfying and fun. And then the one we got an award for, the passion fruit caramel, which is a vegan caramel, and we got a Good Food Award for confections for that.
Oh wow, and those are big deal awards, those Good Food Awards.
Those are allegedly a very big deal. I mean, we flew out to Oregon, we got to be on a stage, everybody had to look at a picture of us. It was nice.
Did you get to hang out with the folks from Stoneman Brewery and Real Pickles who also won awards at the last one?
I didn't see the Real Pickles people there, but it's okay because one of them is my landlord at my other shop.
Wait, so are you making stuff at the Franklin County CDC too?
No. So around the corner within the last year, we also opened a cafe around the corner called Tunic, and my landlord over there is one of the Real Pickles folks.
Oh, cool.
Ostensibly a gaming cafe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, tabletop RPGs. We have Dungeons and Dragons nights. Yeah.
Wow. And we are in the basement of Thorne's Marketplace, which for our purposes right now is a chocolate factory for Fire Type Chocolate, which has a booth up on the first floor off of Main Street in Thorne's Marketplace with the owner and chocolatier, Dan McKinney.
Chocolate is like both easy and difficult to work with.
Yep.
What are some of the challenges you didn't expect, especially after coming back from New York working in chocolate?
The bad days happen no matter what. Like no matter what you do, you're going to, and that's what I tell everybody when they're starting out here is that like every once in a while, you're going to be crushing it for weeks, and then you're just going to have a day where it's like nothing's right. And it could be humidity in the air. It could be, just the vibes are off because it is so temperamental. It's polymorphic, all the fat, there's like different stages of crystals. There's like 6 different forms of how the fats combine with the sugars and blah, 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 blah. But that's ultimately the reason why when you have a Snickers bar and it melts in your pocket and you put it in the fridge, it doesn't set up the same way as like when you had it the first place. Same thing with this stuff. And so because it's so temperature controlled and you have to control every step of the process, it's a lot more science than even just general baking.
Mm-hmm. Chocolate doesn't grow naturally here. Where do you get your chocolate from?
We buy couverture from Valrhona. It's the most expensive one on the market. And boy, howdy, has that price gone up and up and up and up over the years. I mean, the dark, we use a blend of Madagascar and Ecuador. I'm not sure on the milks or the whites at this point, just because, I don't know, they're milk chocolate.
Yeah.
But I'm going to worry about the tasting notes on milk chocolate.
Or white chocolate for that matter. Speaking of, should we broach the white chocolate?
Yes, let's broach the white chocolate.
issue?
I think people need to get some real problems. That's like...
Tell us why people hate white chocolate, or snobs love to disparage white chocolate, like Khalees and I do.
Well, no, it's not. I'm not disparaging white chocolate. I just think you should call it something else because it doesn't have cocoa solids in it.
But it's so much cocoa butter, at least the good stuff. So here's the thing.
Right.
A Hershey's Cookies and Cream Bar, I ain't justifying that. I love them. I'm not justifying it. But a good quality white chocolate is honestly the most expensive product on the line that I can buy. A bag used to cost me, $100-something. Now it's $400 a bag for just the white chocolate because it's so much cocoa butter product in there.
But what is it missing that keeps it from being chocolate?
I guess, some people, it's the cocoa solids.
It's cocoa solids. It's got the fat, but it doesn't have any of the solids from the bean, which chocolate that is brown has.
But where did the fat come from? A cow? No.
That's true.
Dan, what is the chocolate that you are proudest of? That you are like, I totally nailed this. I am Willy Wonka.
I'm just going to sit reflectively for maybe 30 minutes while I think about this. It all comes back to the ones that are inspired by like my childhood memories growing up, like the banana cream one we do. It's inspired by like the desserts I grew up with that my mom made, and then I get to give that piece to her and she comes and asks like, do you have that banana one? Like, that's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, we did an ambrosia piece last holiday. She just started making ambrosia one year for Thanksgiving, and everyone gave her such a hard time because it's like, what? We're here for mashed potatoes, not weird green Jell-O salad. And we're not Midwestern. We've been in New England our whole life. But to like take that and then turn it into a dark chocolate truffle and actually have like the vibes of an ambrosia salad, that's the best. That's the reason I do it. It's not for the money. Definitely not for the money.
I know we're here in your kitchen, but both Heavenly and Firetype sometimes bring in other folks' chocolate. What are the things that they do that you can't?
Yeah, and we definitely did, like, in the Heavenly days, we had a lot of third-party confectioners. Nowadays, we only have one or two in the case because they're, like, a lower price point, which, I feel silly asking for $3 for a little piece of candy. I know it's a ridiculous amount. We put a lot of work into it. It's expensive ingredients, but even still, so having like a small cream or a fruit jelly that we can get in still that's under $2, I still like to have that stuff.
Is there a particularly cool toy, chocolate making tool back here that you can show us?
Yeah, I mean, we can just pop the lid off of this guy.
What's this guy?
This is the Sell Me Plus EX. This cost me $17,000.
Wow.
It's a chocolate car.
It's a chocolate car. So this is our dark chocolate temperer. We can leave it melting overnight, or we just refill it as we go. And this just keeps chocolate hot and melting and circulating.
I want to Augustus Gloop myself right into this vat of chocolate.
Don't worry, he can't drink it all.
Augusto, sweetheart, save some room for later.
It's like a 3-foot tall, thin tank, and right now it is stirring this chocolate in a way that looks absolutely glorious.
Yeah, and I was a little worried, like when I knew you guys were coming, that you would stick a finger in or something, and I wasn't sure. I know.
My whole head in.
I had a feeling listening to the show you knew better.
But you knew who else was going to be here.
Here I go!
Dive in, save him.
Oh, it's too late.
Too late.
The fun thing about this is that it also it circulates throughout the whole machine. So as it goes down, it feeds into a corkscrew in the back, and that corkscrew feeds up and out of this pipe. So then we can get some waterfall action happening here.
Oh, cool.
So you do have a chocolate waterfall.
I do have a chocolate waterfall.
And it's mixed by waterfall.
And look at my waterfall. That's the most important thing. It's mixing my chocolate.
So cool.
And then you'll hold the trays under that waterfall and then go work with it elsewhere?
Yeah, so for the molds, we'll able to like hold and we'll do some scraping and some hand painting and all that stuff, a lot of fine hand movements. Or for the enrobed pieces, we'll set up the conveyor belt and we'll get the waterfall going and feed all those pieces through.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we'll hand decorate every single one as it comes off the line.
That's so much fun.
That's awesome.
It's a cool toy. It keeps. Okay, so the temperature in the bowl, I can set higher than what comes out of the spout. So as it circulates, it gets into temper. So when I get it into the full snowflake mode here, it comes out at like 84, 85, whatever I set it to, but it stays at 120 in the bowl.
Oh, nice.
And as it goes through the conveyor belt, all of that extra chocolate and the excess is falling back in and remelting, and it's just this perfect, wonderful thing. that's worth $17,000.
Considering the labor and time that you have to doing it by hand, this is absolutely worth it. If you were doing all of those pieces by hand, this would take weeks instead of like a couple of days.
It also goes to show you why you have to pay a little bit more if you want the fire type chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, we still we hand load, we have to hand decorate, hand cup everything. So but when there was a holiday very early on where we were still hand dipping every piece, and I don't know, 29, 28, I could feel my hands starting to go. And I was like, geez, I can't find a new career now. I'm too locked in. I'm 12 years in. So we had to make the investments appropriately.
What's the trickiest filling you make here at Fire Type Chocolate?
The trickiest is probably... we're going back to white chocolate. Let's crack it open again. But caramelized white has gotten to be such a big thing over the last few years, which, you can cook. They figured out a way to caramelize and get all these toasty, wonderful notes and make a golden color out of white chocolate. It's a terrible thing to make ganache with. You actually slab that thing out. It's sticky. It's goopy. The staff complain to me every single time. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's a skill issue. Get good.
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef.
There's a lot of chef down here. Even though I don't think we've earned the chef or the herd, but there's a lot of, all right, herd, yes, chef, corner.
Yeah.
Kitchen's gonna kitchen. It's fine. They all have the same lingo,
Kitchen's
basically.
gonna kitchen. We're gonna blast dough cheese so loud that you can hear it in Harold's upstairs. That's what kitchen's gonna kitchen.
Oopsie, made a oopsie.
Most unlikely combination that has worked for you here at Fire Type.
Okay, yeah. So in the summertime, that's usually our experimental. We can be weird because that's we're not having to make hearts and snowmen and all this stuff. But we do a sweet corn caramel in the summertime. So good. Cool. It's one of those ones where we only make 1 or 2 batches for it, but the flavor freaks are like, yo, when's the sweet corn coming back?
Yeah.
We also did an onion caramel one year. That was maybe my favorite. Nobody bought it. It was so good.
I can totally see that working.
Yeah. We reduced the heck out of them, and it was so good, so savory, in milk chocolate on the shell with little salt on there. Oh, that's the jam.
We've already heard a little bit about your costs going up, but besides that, Mrs. Kennedy, how's climate change treating you?
Not great. It's pretty rough out there. It's one of those things that I oscillate back and forth between we're fine, we're gonna survive, I will always find a way, and we got an email within the last couple months from one of our suppliers hey, prices are going up again. I don't know how many small confectioners are going to make it with these kind of prices. And I don't want to compromise on getting the lower quality stuff. So then what do we do? How do we change the model? How do we do we lean more into caramels where even sugar prices are going up, but not at the same rate? Do we lean into marshmallows? All of those kind of varieties, cookies even. I don't know what the future looks like. I will be here for it. That's a threat.
Once again.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
You can find more information. I just want to hear this song.
Life I know.
We already did karaoke this week on the air. You can find more information on both Fire Type Chocolate and Tunic Cafe right around the corner online, where you can get chocolate for your faraway Valentines because they ship nationwide. And thanks again to Dan Oompa Loompa McKenney.
He's not a Loompa Loompa, he's in charge.
Okay, Dan Willy Wonka McKenney for taking us on a tour of Thorns and his chocolate factory there.
Indeed. And online is also where you can find the subject of Word Nerd Emily Brewster's next chat with us, a way to circumvent the censoring of social media, algospeak.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Here's a terrible thing. I have never watched a single episode of Buffy.
Well, here's the thing. So when I was a kid, there was the Buffy movie.
Right.
And I loved the Buffy movie. And then they were making a Buffy TV show, and I was not interested because it wasn't the same Buffy, which I had been burned because there was a Ferris Bueller movie, and then there was a Ferris Bueller TV show, and the TV show was terrible, especially because it was a different Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
But I have subsequently gone back, and I'm now obsessed with Buffy. And so the fact that it's coming back is really good. And the fact
that Chloe Zhao is doing it is even more awesome.
As opposed to the problematic creator of Buffy.
He's not the worst of the worst, but he's bad.
It's good that he's not part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. Algo speak. Is that like Al Gore speak?
No.
Keeping speech in a locked box?
Under my plan, I will put Medicare in an ironclad lockbox.
You mean the president of Trash Island?
Is that Al Gore?
It would take way too long to explain that joke.
Okay. Emily Brewster, neither of these things are correct, I'm sure, when it comes to whatever algo speak is. What is algo speak?
Algospeak is the name that has been given to, it's a kind of language innovation that is used to help people avoid censorship by algorithms.
Now that's very interesting, and I see this all the time on social media, and we're living in an era where social media is very interesting, and people are accusing people of all sorts of different things and using this, I guess, algospeak to try to do it without getting censored.
Yes, and algospeak is very common. It's not only found on social media, but that's where linguists are certainly finding the wealth of data to investigate. What sort of things have you been noticing?
Well, I mean, if people want to bring up the Nazis, they oftentimes will spell it differently, or they'll use, I believe they're called grolics, different types of like the @ symbol and the pound symbol and the $sign and the percent and all that.
I know it as leading. I still refer to it as leading. People will lead the language to avoid the algorithm.
Yeah.
Yes, and Khalees, this is leet spelled L33T.
Yes.
Right, originally.
Interesting.
Leet speak, yes. Which was, I mean, when did leet speak get started? It was a long time ago. It's like the days of I Can Has Cheeseburger.
Turn of the millennium,
right?
yeah.
So in algospeak, there are all kinds of methods that people use. And I want to talk about the different ways that algospeak is created.
Do tell.
Linguists are studying algospeak, and I don't think anybody who uses algospeak really calls it algospeak. I think algospeak is really it's a term that the linguists have applied because it's very interesting linguistic development.
Sure is.
There are two linguists, Kendra Calhoun and Alexia Fawcett, who have done a lot of research on algospeak. They were instrumental in putting together one of the installments of the Among the New Words in the American Speech Journal that we sometimes talk about. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today has to do with research that they've done and categories that they have determined because they've spent a lot of time analyzing the different forms of algospeak. In recent use, it's just been very, very big on TikTok for a couple of reasons. One being that subtitles are used. And so when subtitles are used, subtitles can also be searched. You can flag something as violating a policy and then it's deleted. Mm-hmm. And so creators don't want to be censored, right? So they will use methods to outsmart the algorithms.
What are some of the cleverest methods that these researchers and you have encountered in this type of algospeak?
Calhoun and Fawcett identified 7 linguistic strategies for avoiding algorithmic moderation, we might say. So one is using non-letters. Someone might use a rock emoji when they don't want to say that they're stoned, but they do want to say that they're stoned,
Gotcha.
For example.
Yes.
There also a shopping cart emoji is used to refer to a vaping cartridge. It was the first cart.
New to me.
Shopping cart.
I thought it had to do with the food bank march.
I mean, it could. If you wanted to, it absolutely could.
Yeah, I thought that's what my children were telling me about. Turns out I was wrong all along.
And then we have, a snowflake or a ski emoji can refer to cocaine. Often algospeak is useful for talking about things that are maybe deeply personal that you might be censored for, but also things that are flat out illegal.
Right.
So not topics that you want to openly speak about in, say, your place of employment, for example.
Yeah, but I think if you're putting shopping carts and snowflakes on things, people are going to get wise to that real quick.
But, it also gets used for, sexual speak, too. It's kind of where we get the eggplant thing from, and peaches and cherries sometimes. Lots of fruit.
Yeah.
Honestly, when we're using sexual connotations, turns out.
So those would count as algo speak as well?
Yes, absolutely. Also, the watermelon emoji, I think we've talked about this before, being used as a symbol for solidarity with Palestinians.
Right.
Mm. But also, the grape emoji can be used to avoid using the word rape.
Ooh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah. And then there is this kind of old school elite speak sort of way, using 2 3s for the E's in the word queer, for example.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Or spelling gay with the @ symbol, or Iran. These are also used in political, in context relating to the need for secrecy in political turmoil.
Right, and I think that there is potential that the algorithm gets suppressed when you're putting certain types of political speech out there, and I think that it's interesting that people are still wanting to use social media, especially the platforms that are most popular, but trying to find ways around them so that the algorithm doesn't suppress it in the same way.
Well, because its use as a tool in these movements and in connection and community are still useful. It's just that the people who are running them are actively seeking to suppress it in ways that movements are often actively suppressed.
We had that UMass professor on a couple weeks ago who was talking about how they're going to try to use AI in game theory to try to stay one step ahead of censorship when it comes to this sort of thing.
Right.
Interesting. So another method is innovative phonological patterns. For example, changing an unvoiced consonant to a voiced consonant. It's funny to me that this is how linguists describe it, but no one who is actually doing this kind of innovation needs to. I mean, sure, some people might be aware even of these formal names of it, but that's not what inspires it. So changing a word like sexy to segsy.
Yep, I know that one.
Yeah.
Why would they do that one? That one's not going to get suppressed.
It might.
What's wrong with being sexy?
It might, because it's like some catchers are age-based, so anything remotely referring to sex is caught.
Yeah. I guess now that my 12-year-old niece is on Facebook, maybe I don't want her to be posting and putting things up that say sexy. But it's not my decision.
Maybe not.
She's not my daughter.
And we also can't forget that just because algospeak is rooted in this avoidance of censorship, the people who are using it are also just playful. You know, at times it's just like, this is fun, this is playful, this is language expanding. It also has that element of it too.
And it's interesting from a dictionary perspective, and we're speaking with Emily Brewster from Merriam Webster, our dictionary at Springfield, that the linguists are looking into this because this is the next wave of language, of the English language and other languages that will eventually be words that are put in the dictionary because that's where people will go when they want to find out what leet means with 2 3s in the middle of it, or maybe even what the eggplant emoji means. I don't know how you would look that one up in the dictionary, but...
Yeah, well, right. The lexicalization of emoji is one question, and then also just how established do these variant forms of familiar words become? Mm-hmm. We've talked about before about the origin of okay. Right. Okay being an intentional misspelling of all correct, or an abbreviation of an intentional misspelling of the phrase all correct. And that was lost for so long. It was lost for a very long time. People did not know where okay had come from for, 100 years, really. It's basically not understood at all.
And now, is it true that is the most popular word in the world? I used to think the most popular English word in the world, but I guess if other people are using it in other languages, it's no longer English either.
I don't know that it has, I don't know who would make that statement definitively. But there's a very good chance that it is the most well-known word in the world.
Yeah, my guess was that it might be Mohammed, but that's maybe a proper noun doesn't count in what we're trying to measure here.
Oh, interesting. Right. Also in the innovative phonological patterns, I have not seen this one in the wild, but muck duck used to mean murder.
Ooh.
Oh.
Do you all know this one? This one actually predates algospeak because it comes from an episode of The Office in the U.S. It's the U.S. office. Dwight apparently says,
R is among the most menacing of sounds. That's why they call it murder and not muck duck. Okay.
He ain't wrong.
I mean, yeah, that's...
Right.
That feels right.
I don't want to divulge too much information, but Dwight from The Office has connections to Franklin County. Period.
No way.
Yeah, I'll tell you all off the air.
Okay.
So people have been using muck duck to mean murder also. Lexical replacement is another category. That's when you use a word. It's kind of like the idea of metonymy. So using the word grippy sock to refer to mental health.
Uh-huh.
So if you spend time in a hospital, you might say that you were at the Grippy Sock Hotel, for example. There's also accountant or accounting to mean sex worker or sex work itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the origin of this one?
No.
There was a TikToker in 2020, I think it was, who was an actor, and he posted a video and also with a song that he had written talking about how he doesn't like to answer the question, oh, you're an actor, what do you do? And so he just tells people that he's an accountant.
I don't want to go through the motions of saying that auditions are a full-time job. I'd rather smile and simply state that I have a full-time job as an accountant.
But then this was adopted more broadly, and accountant is being used on OnlyFans, on these other sites for people talking about, as a way to refer to sex work and sex workers.
I like saying if you're an actor that you lie for a living, which is
kind of also true. But
It's kind of also
it's
true.
going to open up more questions than just saying an actor.
If you're trying to avoid that, that's not the answer you give.
Right. Or my kind of linguistic replacement or metonymy, I guess, would be that after the show, I'm going to go to murder ballet.
Yep.
Which is what I call my kung fu class.
Yes.
Or maybe I should call it muck duck ballet.
Murder ballet. I love that. That's really good.
Got to put on my murder pajamas. It's time for murder ballet.
For Muck Duck Ballet. Muck Duck Ballet sounds like an actual show.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it.
The Muck Duck Ballet is on tour in the northern states for the next 3 months, bringing performances to Americans everywhere.
Yeah, where do I buy my ticket?
I know, right?
Well, thank you, Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam Webster. If you have a question for our word nerd, send us your questions to thefab413@nepm.org, and we will ask our senior editor from Merriam Webster in Springfield, Emily Brewster. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, no, Curtis Mayfield. All right.
Curtis Mayfield.
And if you've got examples of your own for algospeak you've encountered, send them to thefab413@nepm.org. We'd love to see the things that you've encountered, too.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but tonight is board game night at the Brass Cat, where I definitely will be, and I definitely have new things I haven't tried.
Well, that's fun. And
I'm
now
just saying.
we know that Tunic Cafe in Northampton also
I know, I'm excited
not
to
only
try
has
that
game
too.
nights, but games for sale.
I know.
And thanks again to Dan McKenney for taking us to his cafe as well as to his chocolate factory.
And showing me that I have an opportunity to test out my one-shots.
Yes.
Super excited about that also.
Tons of fun. Well, on the next Fabulous 413, a new children's book takes a look at the childhood of well-renowned local author Jane Yolen. We'll speak with the main character herself, as well as the author of Janie Writes a Play, Jane Yolen's daughter, and a decorated author in her own right, Heidi Stemple.
Oh, that's so adorable. It's also a super cute book. We finally have copies of it.
Yeah.
Got a chance to look it over.
And there is an NPR national connection to it that will come up on the show tomorrow.
Oh,
as well. Remember, because we
really?
accidentally got an additional copy of the book that was meant for somebody at NPR National.
Yes.
Ooh. Tell you tomorrow on the show.
Indeed. Plus, we hear from the 2S LGBTQIA plus community in their own words with the Queer Story Slam at Bombix, Center for Arts and Equity in Florence, with Reen Smith and Wilder Ayers.
And our weekly chat with U.S. Representative Jim McGovern. We take your questions, be you conservative, be you liberal, be you somewhere in between. We were bombarded with questions for last week's show, and we've got a decent number already, but get them in early, because, full disclosure, I tape with him early. He's a busy guy in the afternoon. So send us your questions for the Congressman, thefab413@nepm.org. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. You put this song in to make me cry, didn't you?
I did.
Ugh.
We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
Yes, we will.